I remember playing a game called Out of This World on PC when I was younger, and I remember it had a pretty big impact on me. First of all, it had some really cool cinematics that were a bit unique at the time. The cinematics were entirely composed of flat colored polygons. Now this technique was essentially the result of inspiration combined with limitation. Now, what I wasn't aware of at the time is that this game went by another name in other parts of the world. So in North America, it was titled Out of This World, which is what I was familiar with. But the original title was actually Another World. The reason for this change was to avoid confusion with a TV series with the same name. Ironically, another TV series unrelated to the game would begin airing around this time, sharing the game's other title, Out of This World. I guess sometimes things are better left unchanged. The other thing that pre-internet me was unaware of at the time is that this game was entirely developed by one Frenchman living in his parents' home. Eric Shahi was inspired by the arcade game Dragon's Lair, which had cartoon-like cinematics powered by a Laserdisc player to display the many bitmapped frames of animation. With a desire to create a similar effect with limited hardware, Eric created his own polygon graphic routines, first developed in the C programming language, and then moving on to assembly in order to accomplish 20 frames per second sequences in a very small amount of storage space. Now, a few years ago, we got a 20th anniversary release of this game on many platforms, including the PlayStation Vita, with a limited physical release put out by Limited Run Games. On the PlayStation Vita, we had a standard copy limited to 1,500 units, and a classic edition which included the game along with some extras limited to 1,000 copies. Of course, I had to pick up the classic edition, and we're going to take a look at it today. What I really love about the intro sequence to this game is that it has this modern sci-fi feel to it, almost as if this laboratory could exist somewhere in the world today without public knowledge. Now, as the game's story goes, something at the lab goes terribly wrong. There's a lightning strike, and we are transported to another world. The large box you see here is kind of a throwback to the computer game boxes of the time. You see, back when the original game was released, computer games all came in fairly large boxes like the one you see here, regardless of how many discs were included. It was just the way that computer games were sold and presented at the time. Usually the games would come with a decent sized manual and some other goodies if you were lucky. Or a code wheel if you were unlucky. This is another throwback to classic computer games. Unfortunately, code wheels were the result of easily copied computer software at the time. Publishers would include something like this to make the software difficult to use without the aid of the physical pack-ins. The way this would work is at some point the game would require you to decipher a code using the physical code wheel. This would usually be randomized so that you couldn't simply write the answer down along with a copy of the game. Now, aside from the replica code wheel, this classic edition also includes a non-functional floppy disk. You can see there is actually no magnetic disk inside. Also included is an 18-inch by 24-inch poster, the retro-style big box, the game, and finally, a design diary booklet, which I found especially interesting. So we have a lot of the evolution of the game in here, how it went from sketch to screen, the design process, some of the thoughts that went into various aspects of the game and its levels. Now, a few of the scenes from the game, as well as a few character animations, have been rotoscoped. which is the process of tracing over film frame by frame to create smooth, fluid animations. Now, aside from a few scenes and animations, most of the game wasn't rotoscoped, just planned out on artboards, sketches, or designed directly on the computer. Quite impressive for a young man living at his parents' home. In here we also have sketches of what creatures might look like, or what certain scenes might look like, why certain things were ultimately changed. And I love seeing game levels laid out on grid paper. I used to do stuff like this as a kid. I always wanted to design my own games. At the end, we have some pictures of what the game boxes looked like for the various ports of the game. Of course, I'm very familiar with this black box PC-DOS USA pack. That is what I had at the time. Oh wow, this game was on 3DO too. And then this Super Nintendo. I have this version too. So with the box, the code wheel, and non-functional disc, all of those things really just serve to emulate those memories you might have when opening a classic big box PC game. Even down to the way the box looks, feels, and opens, it has a certain stiffness that some of the more premium PC games might have had at the time. Anyway, so Limited Run Games did a limited physical release for the PlayStation Vita, the Switch, and the PlayStation 4. But digitally, you can find this game on almost everything. Steam, iOS, Android, Windows, 3DS, Wii U, Switch, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, PlayStation Vita, and Xbox One. There is also a European physical release for PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox One. Now this is actually a double pack that also includes the game Flashback. Anyway, that's one more limited edition that I have opened up and ready to play on my PlayStation Vita. Alright guys, stay tuned for more gaming content, PlayStation Vita reviews, and more.